All right, hello everyone, and welcome to your HiSET writing portion of the intake and orientation process. Um, I am here today to talk to you about the writing test. My name is Paige Keller, and I am a full-time literacy faculty for HiSET, and writing is kind of my passion. So today, what I wanted to do is talk to you a little bit about the structure and the format of the HiSET writing test. It's a little bit different from the other 5 in that it's the only one that has 2 parts to it. And I also want to share some best practices with you as far as test taking strategies go. We will also discuss what to expect and how to approach the HiSET essay, and I'll give you a formula that you can utilize to develop your essay no matter what the subject matter is that you're responding to. And then lastly, you'll have the opportunity to try a multiple choice practice test and to write your own essay. So that said, let's get started. So here are some things that I'd like for you to keep in mind when it comes to the HiSET writing test. So like I said previously, it is a little bit unique in the battery of tests because it's the only one of all 5 tests that has 2 parts to it. So for the writing test, it will have a multiple choice part, just like all of the other tests will have multiple choice portions, but it, in addition to the multiple choice, will also have a part 2 that is an essay that you'll have to write. It's also one of the tests on your for your officials that you can't save for last. So math and writing are 2 tests that you can't save for last. So that's something to just kind of keep in mind as you go about your HiSET journey. In general, you can kind of work through the subject matter in whatever order you feel most comfortable, but that said, you can't save math or writing for last. Another thing about the writing test is that it is really one, along with math, that the majority of most students are the most nervous about. So if you're feeling a little bit apprehensive about the writing test, then just know that you are in good company. There are plenty of other students who are also feeling a little bit nervous about it, and there are plenty of students who came before you who had that same feeling and were able to navigate it just fine. Another thing I want you to keep in mind with regard to the writing test that it, along with all of the other tests, will be done on a computer for your official. So what that means for the writing test is that you'll be typing your essay. So if your typing skills are maybe something that you use a little bit brushing up, then maybe right now is a time to start incorporating that practice, because when you go take your official, it should be a test about whether or not you can develop a good essay, not about whether or not you can type. So unless you've made other sorts of arrangements with your career coach as far as obtaining an accommodation for a paper pencil test, then just expect that the HiSET writing test is going to be on computer, including typing your essay. The test at a glance is something that I want to share with you. This is a document that the folks that make the HiSET put out, and it gives you kind of an overview of each of the HiSET tests. So this is a link that we can make available to you after the session, but I did want to just kind of take a quick second to go over it with you right now. So I am going to share my screen with you, and we are going to look at this together. So here is a document that's called the HiSET Test at a Glance Information Brief. So this is something that I want you to know is out there and available, because it will be, to me, very vital information going into a test. I mean, you can't hit a target that you can't see. So I think it's important for you to know what to expect when you go in to take the test. So this test at a glance will give you an information brief about all of the test subjects. So you can see here it starts out with writing. We're focusing on, or excuse me, it starts out with reading. We're focusing on writing today. So I'm going to scroll past that and go on to the writing test. So you can see here that this is reflective of what you can expect on the official test. I know that in day one you covered the process about getting to the official test, where you go through classes to hone your skills, you take qualifying tests to prove your readiness, and then lastly you go take an official test at a testing center for each of the 5 subjects. So for writing, you'll have 2 hours, 120 minutes, and 60 multiple choice questions and 1 essay. So you can see here that the content categories are broken down for both the multiple choice and the essay. So these are the different types of questions that will be tested on the multiple choice portion: 22% organization of ideas, 43% language facility, 35% writing conventions. And then for the essay, they're looking for development of a central position or claim, and then for you to show mastery of organization of ideas, language facility, and writing conventions. Well, in order to break that down a little bit more, because maybe, oh yeah, that sounds great, but what does all of that mean, right? So this document does just that. It breaks it down. So like, what does organization of ideas mean? Here it is. What does language facility mean? Here are some like tangible, concrete examples. So I do know that there are students who use this as a study guide and just go through each of these, and it's like, oh yeah, that I can do that. That I need to brush up on that. That I don't even know what that means. Let me talk to my instructor about it. So this can also be used not only as a, what to expect on test day, but also as a good idea of what you should be focusing your efforts on when it comes to studying. So test at a glance, they have this one PDF contains that sort of information for all 5 subjects. So again, this is a document that will be made available to you, and I want you to know that it's there so that you can utilize it. That said, without further ado, let's go back to my presentation. Oops, wrong one. Okay, so we covered the test at a glance. So now let's talk about the essay particularly. So what to expect on the essay. So there are lots of different types of essays out there, and then there is the HiSET essay. So let's just remove everything that you've ever heard, read, known, been told about an essay in the past, and put that in one category and put the HiSET essay into another category. So with the HiSET essay, it is called a position paper that you'll be writing, also potentially referred to as an argumentative essay. So what you can expect is that you'll be given 2 different passages to read, and each passage represents opposite sides of some sort of a controversial issue. So, for example, maybe school uniforms is something that's being debated. So you'll be given one passage that has one side of the debate on school uniforms, and a second passage that represents the opposite side of that debate on school uniforms. Your task at hand is to read both passages and then decide which one you're going to align with. Which side do you support? And you're going to develop your HiSET essay or your position paper around that side being the best side. So let me show you a sample. So sticking with this idea of school uniforms, here is an example of a sample passage that you might read regarding school uniforms. So obviously what's being debated here is whether or not school uniforms should be allowed or required in the United States in public schools. So this side, without even reading it, I can tell from the article, they think they're against it. They think it's the wrong place. For the sake of time, we're not going to read through all of this together, but you will need to read through the passage in its entirety whenever you're taking your test. And then you'll be given a second passage. Again, looks something like this. This, I think, would be pretty representative of about how long each of the passages are. So this side is clearly agreeing with the idea, or a proponent of having school uniforms in public schools. So you're given two passages. One passage is against school uniforms, one passage is in favor of school uniforms. Then you're going to be given a call to action that looks like this. Write an essay in which you explain your own position on the issue of, in this case, whether or not school uniforms should be required in public schools. Now, no matter what it is that is being debated, because there'll be different subject matter for your practice test, for your qualifying test, for your official tests, it's going to be that same format where you're given two different passages and they're debating some sort of an issue, and each passage represents opposite sides of that issue. They're always going to give you a call to action that says, write an essay in which you explain your own position on the issue of, and then they're going to say what it is that's being debated. So keep that in mind, because you can use that to formulate your initial sentence once you get started. They'll also always say this: be sure to use evidence from the passages provided, as well as specific reasons and examples from your own experience and knowledge to support your position. Remember that every position exists within the context of a larger discussion of the issue. So your essay should, at minimum, acknowledge alternate and/or opposing ideas. When you have finished your essay, review your writing to check for correct spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Okay, so this is where the rubber meets the road. They've given you all the information, you've reviewed it, and now they're telling you this is what we want from you. So how can you approach your essay in order to make sure that you do all of those things? I have a formula that I'm going to suggest for you. That is a 4-paragraph formula and looks something like this. Now, the first thing that I'm going to say is that there are multiple ways that you can approach this task and still pass. So you do not have to use 4 paragraphs. There is nothing in the grading rubric that says you have to do 4 paragraphs. What I'm giving you is a tool for your toolbox. So if this resonates with you and you can relate, and this is ideally a way to kind of take some of the guesswork out of it and make it more of a systematic process as opposed to like a creative, I guess, for lack of a better term, then they use it. Like, there is a formula here that you can use that will give the people who are grading your essay everything that they are looking for. There is indeed many other ways that you can do it and still pass. So I don't want you to think for any length of time that this is the only way to do it, and if you don't do it this way, then you won't pass. That's not the case. Writing is in itself somewhat subjective, so everybody is going to have a different essay that they produce, and everybody in here could write essay with a different number, you know, in a different way, a different manner, a different approach, and still pass. That's fine. That's when you go back to that test at a glance and you see that these are the things that they're looking for you to show mastery of. If you can do that in 3 paragraphs, sweet. If you can do it in 5 paragraphs, great. You don't have to do it in 4, but this 4-paragraph formula is a option, is a system that you could choose to adopt if you want to. And in my experience, students who have done so have been successful. So your first paragraph is going to be your introduction. So here you're going to just, in general, overarching terms, say what it is that's being debated. So for the example that we use, you would say, you know, the topic of school uniforms is often debated in our country, or there is a debate on the topic of school uniforms. So you're just going to give an overall statement about what it is that's being debated. And then you want to summarize what the argument is of that first passage, and then summarize what the argument is of that second passage. And that's what you'll include here. So you can literally just do it in 3 paragraphs. There's a debate on the issue of, some people say this, others believe this. Now you can go ahead and take your stance in that first paragraph if you want to. You don't have to. You can. Either way, you want to make sure that you open that second paragraph by clearly stating where you stand. So of the 2 sides that you have already introduced in your introduction, now is the time to take one or the other, drop it down to that second paragraph, and declare that as the stance that you're taking. So, for example, you might start that second paragraph with, I firmly agree with any school's decision to impose and enforce a mandatory school uniform policy. That's clearly stating where you stand. Then what you want to do is go back to whichever side you take. You want to go back to whichever passage aligns with that stance and choose information from that passage to support your claim. So what they're asking you to do here, if you go back to your call to action, then you can see that they clearly say, be sure to use evidence from the passages provided. That's what you're doing here in your second paragraph. You're going back to the passage provided, and you're saying that this information proves that the side that you've taken is the better of the 2. Now keep in mind that they also say to use specific reasons and examples from your own experience and knowledge to support your claim. Again, you're also going to do that before you get out of this second paragraph. So state which of the 2 sides which of the 2 sides you are going to take. So one or the other. Use evidence from the passages that they provided to support that claim, and then also make sure that you bring in some sort of personal experience, opinion, observation, something from your own personal life, so that you can show them that not only does the literature, in this case the literature is that the passages they provided support your claim, but also you can see it through from a personal perspective as well. So that's what you're going to do in your second paragraph. Your third paragraph is where you're going to bring up the opposing view. So again, if you go back to your call to action, then they say, remember that every position exists within the context of a larger discussion of the issue. So your essay should, at minimum, acknowledge alternate and/or opposing ideas. That's what you're doing here in paragraph 3. You're acknowledging alternate and/or opposing ideas. And by default, there's only one other opposing idea, and that is whichever idea you haven't addressed yet from the introduction. So you've presented 2 different ideas in the introduction. One of them you dropped down to that second paragraph and you fleshed it out using evidence from the passage as well as evidence from your personal life as that being the correct side. So now go back to your introduction, see whichever side it is that you haven't addressed yet, and pull that down to your third paragraph. And you want to say something just like, you know, not everyone agrees with me, others believe, and then just state exactly what it is that you said that they believe from the introduction. You can even just do it word for word. And that is showing consistency in your organization of ideas. You're not bringing up 2 different ideas in your introduction, bringing one down, and then bringing in a whole new idea in your third paragraph. So I like to kind of use this example as a cautionary tale for the third paragraph. Students in my class, we write an essay about hard work versus natural talent. So what's being debated is whether hard work or natural talent are better indicators of one's ability to be successful in life. Well, the author of the first passage states that you have to have some sort of like amount of like natural talent in order to be successful at anything in life. Well, the author of the second paragraph states that it doesn't matter what sort of natural talent you have, as long as you work hard, you can set your mind to it and be successful no matter what. So those are the two sides that are being debated, right? So oftentimes students will really kind of relate with that hard work pays off mentality. So they'll start to develop their essay around that if you work hard, you can be successful no matter what. So they've presented the two ideas in the introduction. You have to have some sort of natural talent in order to be successful. If you work hard, you'll be successful no matter what. They bring that second idea, if you work hard, you'll be successful no matter what, down to the second paragraph, and then they flesh it out with evidence from that passage that supports that. They also are usually pretty easy to find some sort of example from their own life where they weren't necessarily naturally inclined towards something, but they were able to work hard and achieve their goal in that area. So now it's time for the third paragraph, and they say, not everyone agrees with me on this. Some believe that if you eat 1,000 lollipops a day, then you'll be successful. And this is where the train comes off the track, because you're introducing a whole random new third idea and it throws your whole paper off. So if you can clearly establish the two ideas in your introduction, then it's really a matter of just going back to them, whether or not you're supporting it or you're against it. Those are the two ideas that you are keeping in focus the entire time. So here you want to just bring down whichever idea you didn't address as being right and address it as being wrong here. So you can do it as easily as, not everyone agrees with me on this. Others believe that school uniforms inhibit a student's right to express themselves. And then the important thing here is that you want to say that they're wrong. The point of bringing up the opposite side is not to be diplomatic or friendly or nice. It's to say that they're wrong. You want to show that you have a well-rounded argument. In order to do so, you have to show that you have thoroughly considered all of the sides, and this is the side that you stand on. So in order to show that you have thoroughly considered all of the sides, you have to address that. And here's where you do so in your third paragraph. Say what the other side says, say why they're wrong. And then lastly is your conclusion. I strongly recommend that you start your conclusions with the word in conclusion, comma, and then you just restate where you stand. And again, going back to this idea of consistency from the jump, in your introduction, you've stated one of the two ideas. You've taken that one idea and you've brought it down to your second paragraph, said why it's right and all of the reasons from your passages and from your own personal life that you support it. So that same idea you're going to bring up again in your third or in your conclusion. So introduction, second paragraph, conclusion should all be the same idea, the same message that you're reiterating, that this is the right side. So nothing big, nothing fancy in your conclusion. You don't want to bring in any new ideas. You don't want to bring in any new evidence. If you have any of that, do it in your second paragraph. Your conclusion is simply, in conclusion, I agree with those who say, or I support the implementation of school uniform policies in all schools in America. School uniforms are the key to reducing social distractions and restoring a focus on education. So it doesn't have to be big, fancy, anything. It's just briefly restate where you stand, briefly restate why it's better. Here is kind of another way of organizing the ideas in your head if you need this for a visual. Again, this PowerPoint will be shared with you, so you'll have all of this information at your disposal. Again, keeping in line with like a visual representation, your introduction and your conclusion are going to be smaller, whereas the second is going to really be where your meat and potatoes are, and your third are going to be bigger. So this would be kind of a visual format of what your essay should look like when it's all done. And another thing is that sometimes students have trouble just getting started with each section. So like a lot of times I'll hear, I don't even know how to start my introduction. Well, start your introduction by saying there's a debate on the issue of, and then go back to your passages and say what it is that's being debated. Your second paragraph, you can always start with some say, and then again, wherever there's lines here, you're just filling in with information that's pertinent to the two passages that you're responding to. So feel free to, while you're still trying to become comfortable with this process of developing a HiSET essay, feel free to lean on any of these sentence frames that you see in this PowerPoint and adapt them as your own. Every single essay that you write, you can start out by saying there's a debate on the issue of. Whether that's for your practice test, your qualifying test, your official test, every single one. If that helps you get started, then take that as your own and throw it into your repertoire. So take some time once you get your hands on this PowerPoint to study these sentence frames and see if there's anything in here that can really kind of relate with and can kind of help click in your brain so that you can get the ball rolling whenever it's time for you to write your essay. Here are some things to keep in mind on test day. So you'll be able to take a pencil and a blank sheet of paper into the test location with you, and that's it. So you'll have to, they have lockers there. You'll lock up your phone, your purses, your bags, anything else that you bring with you, you'll have to lock up because you can't take them in there with you. The only thing you can take in is a pencil and a sheet of paper. So I have included here on the following slides a couple of different graphic organizers for you. I would like for you to review these and see if there's anything that really kind of works for you as far as getting your thoughts organized, and then you can essentially just recreate that on your blank sheet of paper. So keep in mind that what works for me perhaps doesn't work for you, and what works for you is likely not going to work for your neighbor. All of us are different, and our minds work in different ways, and we organize information differently. So I've provided a couple of different examples for you. So if the right answer for which one is the best one is whichever one works for you. So there really is no right or wrong answer. My goal is for you to just find something that you can latch onto, that you can use as a way to organize your thoughts to help alleviate the stress of writing an essay. It shouldn't be stressful, it should be fun. So here's one way. Again, this is similar to using those sentence frames. Basically, you're just filling in the blanks with information that's pertinent to the passages that you are responding to. But no matter what essay you write, you can still use this general framework. Here's another way that students have actually told me they've gone in to their test and recreated this exact same graphic organizer, and then as they're reading, they fill it in. So introduce the argument, they write that at the top. What does one side say? They summarize that as they are reading after they've read their first passage. What's the other side say? Summarize that after they've read the second passage. Then, they just fill in the blanks here, and then by the end, they basically have all of the pieces to the puzzle. It's just a matter of putting it together and polishing it. I often do hear from students that it's helpful for them to see a finished product. So that's what I've provided here for you too. So again, whenever you get this PowerPoint and you have the time that you can review it on your own, you can see the two passages, you can see the call to action, and then here you can see what a final finished product looks like. So with regard to the scoring of the essay, I know that you've already gone over the scoring of the official tests, and you are aware that you have a scale of 1 to 20, and you have to get an 8 or higher on each of them in order to pass, and that at the very end, your composite score, or the total of all 5 of your tests, has to add up to 45 or higher. That doesn't include the essay. So the essay is scored on a scale of 1 to 6. Now keep in mind that you still have to score 8 or higher on the multiple choice and 2 or higher on the essay in order to pass the whole test. If you score 20 on the multiple choice and 1 on the essay, you didn't pass. And when you go back, you have to take both sections over again. They're not separate in that regard, but they are graded on a separate scale. And so, like I said earlier, since writing is somewhat of a subjective thing, I wanted to make sure that you know, and again, this is something that can be, that will be shared with you, but I wanted to let you know that there is there's a writing rubric out there that you can kind of review so that you have a better idea of what to expect as far as the scoring goes for each section. So I'm going to share my screen with you here, and we're going to go over this quickly. So here is the writing response scoring guide. So this is put out by HiSET. And so what they're saying is basically like, here's a score of a 1. So in their opinion, when they read your essay, if they give it a 1, it's because it met this criteria. Same with the 2. And they do that all the way up to a 6, which is the highest that you can score on the essay, which I've actually never seen done. Not saying it can't be done, just saying I haven't seen it done. So this is something that you probably want to review too, because you obviously want to know how they're grading you. And I would recommend that if you're setting a standard for yourself, that you shoot for a 4. I know a 2 is passing, but I would shoot for a 4. So again, this is a link that will be shared with you that you could have at your disposal to review as you see fit. Okay, so here are some questions that I frequently get about the essay, and I am hoping that you have a good answer to these already in your mind. But what I would ask for you to do now is for you to just have like a sheet of paper or something handy. Maybe you just want to type it or something, but I'm going to ask these questions. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to answer them on your own to yourself, and then I'm going to answer them, and hopefully our answers match. Okay, so one of the first questions that I get an awful lot is, do I have to read both passages? So think about that on your own to yourself. Do you have to read both passages? The answer that I hope that you came up with is yes. Of course you have to read both passages. You have to choose one side or the other and say why that side is better. So you can't really formulate a great argument if you haven't heard what the other side has to say. So you do have to read both passages, and then after you've read both passages, that's when you'll want to decide which side you want to stand on. Furthermore, you have to address the opposite side that you don't stand on in that third paragraph. So if you don't know what they're saying, you can't really address them. If you don't know what they're saying, then you can't really summarize their argument in your introduction. So yes, you have to read both passages. Another question I get is, do we write about whatever we want? Is there something specific that we should write about? You're not writing about your favorite family vacation, your favorite place to get burgers in the metro, your favorite animal. Like, no, it's not open-ended like that. You're given 2 passages. You have to read both passages and then use that formula that I suggest that you use that formula that I provided to you to develop your essay. And what developing your essay means is using that formula to state which side you stand on. So it's not just an open forum. It's not just go in there and type and then they'll look it over and see if they think that you did a good job or not. Read the two passages, read their call to action, and then develop your essay in response to that. Another one that I hear often is, which side should I write about? So think about that for a second. Which side should I write about? Well, the answer to that is whichever side you want. After you've read both passages, write about whichever side you think you can write a better essay in response to. So even if, like in your heart of hearts, let's say that you don't really believe in school uniforms, but after reading those two passages, you think that there's more evidence and the passage in opposition to that is written better, then write your essay around whichever one you think you can use the evidence that they've provided you to develop the best essay around. There's no right or wrong answer. You can write it in opposed, in supportive. It doesn't matter, as long as you are showing mastery of the things that they've identified on that test at a glance, and you're also within the parameters of the scoring response guide in whichever grade or number you're looking to score, then that's which side you should write about. Okay, so I'm going to show you some examples of some final product essays. So again, you'll have this PowerPoint so that you can review each of them in a little bit more depth. But my goal here is for you to see how that formula that I gave you can be applied no matter what the subject matter is that you're responding to. So here we have an essay that is in response to whether or not tax incentives should be offered to new businesses in the area. So here there's a debate on the issue. They say what the debate is. Some say, they say what one side says. Others say, they say what the other side says. Great introduction. Second paragraph, I support, come out of the passage, come out of the gate clearly stating which of those two sides they support, and it matches with the what they've stated in the introduction. According to the passage, so they use evidence from the passages that's provided to support that claim. I myself have a business, so here's where they bring in their personal experience and it supports their side being the better of the two. Go on to that third paragraph. Not everyone agrees with me on this, so they're bringing up the opposite side. Others say tax incentives will not benefit the community. Again, it exactly represents what's up here. Some say tax incentives will not benefit the community. That's not the side they took. That's the side that they're opposed to. So they just brought that verbiage directly down and repeated it in the third paragraph. Starts with in conclusion, comma, restates where they stand, which matches what's in the second paragraph, which matches what's in the introduction, and a brief overview of why that side's better. Beautiful. All elements accounted for. Here's one that is about hard work versus natural talent that I talked to you about. Again, here's what's being debated. Here's what one side says. Here's what the other side says. This essay is a little bit more rounded out and there's more transitions and there's a little bit more evidence, but you can say a lot without saying a lot if you're concise, and that's what I would encourage you to go for. I personally, as an instructor, don't think that just because there's a lot of words on the page makes it a better essay. So you want to make sure that you're following all of your sentence structure, grammatical, mechanical, writing convention rules when you're writing your essay. And if so, you should be just fine as long as you're checking all these boxes that I'm asking you to check as far as the formula goes. So here, I strongly believe, again, it matches what's in the introduction. The text states they're calling in evidence from the passages that's provided. in my own life. So they're bringing in evidence from their own personal life to support the claim. Go on down to the third paragraph. The other side states, so they're saying, this is the other side, this isn't what I think. And again, it matches what's in the introduction. And they've done a really good job here. You'll have a chance to kind of read through this a little bit more thoroughly on your own. But they did a really good job here of developing out an argument against the other side. In conclusion, comma, and then here's what I believe. It again matches what's in the second paragraph, matches what's in the introduction, and then briefly why it's better. Okay, so here are some best practices for you to keep in mind when it comes to test day. In addition to making sure you know where you're going, making sure that you get a good night's sleep, that you've got a full stomach, et cetera, et cetera. Whenever you are taking the test, make sure that you never leave any answer blank. On the multiple choice portion, never leave any answer blank. You're going to 100% get every single one that you leave wrong, that you leave blank wrong. So don't leave any of them blank, even if you have to guess. You want to make sure that you keep a close eye on your time, especially with the writing test. It can get a little bit tricky on how to gauge the multiple choice plus the essay and balance that in terms of how you are spending your time. So keep that in mind and act accordingly. So you want to make sure that you watch your time, and for the multiple choice, do the ones that you know that you're absolutely for sure of first. So make sure that you fill in the ones that you're absolutely positive about first, and you can leave the ones that you're not so sure of until you've gotten through all the ones that you know absolutely for sure. Then go back to the ones that you're a little bit sure of but not quite as positive about and fill those in. And then for last, you want to save the ones that you have no idea about. And gauge your time. If you have time, then obviously you want to try to decipher and figure it out what the answer is. But if it's down to, crunch time and you're literally just having to guess on the ones remaining in order to not leave them blank before you run out of time, then choose one option, and that same option is what you should fill in for each of them. So don't do DAD or ACDC or ABCD, ABCD. Choose A or choose B or choose C, whichever one you're feeling connected with that day, and make sure that when you're going back and you're filling in the answers for the ones that you're guessing at, that you choose all A's or all B's or all C's. Don't do some sort of a pattern. Statistically, you're more likely to get them right when you're guessing if you're choosing the same option throughout, not going in some random pattern. So that said, let's give it a try. So you are now going to have the chance to complete a multiple choice practice test via the Microsoft form links that will be sent to you. So there's 25 questions, I believe. So you will complete the multiple choice practice test via that forms link, and then you will be given this PowerPoint for you to review. So review it as much as you see fit. And you will also be given a passage that is about hard work versus natural talent, a set of paired passages that's about hard work versus natural talent. So you will read both of those passages, and then you have this PowerPoint for you to use as a resource and a guide to get yourself established and write your first essay in response to this hard work versus natural talent. You'll type your essay in a Word document, and then you can email that to your instructor or your session facilitator whenever you're finished. Thanks for being here today, and best of luck.